Times were tough, so I sold my soul. And I don't think I'll ever regain control. Devil looked me in the eye, now I look the other way. What else could I do? I just stood at the doorway, knew I'd rather be drunk with you. I'd rather be drunk, but I'm cold.
Hey Internet, Dracofunk here, and we are back once again with 60 subscribers special, where I'm driving a Rover to the North Pole, and we are just heading out right now. I didn't let the batteries charge as much as I hoped, but we have no time to spare. I would really like to get to Point Hotel by the end of this episode, and we are a little bit further away than I'd like. We are about halfway between Point Golf and Point Hotel. And while that sounds great, historically, we have only made it about a third of the way per episode. However, we did not start out at Point Golf last episode. We actually started out about a quarter of the way to Point Golf, and we made it halfway to Point Hotel. So there is hope. And we do have at least one passenger to pick up at Point Hotel. So I'm just trying to anyway, this is episode 14. I thought, in my naivety, once I started this, that I'd have this done in about 9 episodes. And after the incident, that's what I'm calling it, where I said if we got to 70 subscribers, I would do a whole episode in first person. And we did that, and that ended up costing me a lot of extra time. And we had an almost 3-hour episode, and it was decided after that point by me that I would keep my episodes to about an hour. Even though I had wanted each episode to be me going from one point to the next, that, 3 hours is just too long of continuous recording. And guys, sometimes I need to go to the bathroom. And let me tell you, that was a long 3 hours for me too. But we are now on the way. If you are joining me in this the first time you have witnessed this North Pole expedition, this is my Rover train. I have 2 passenger cars, the Highway 47 Studio, and a power car. And by power, I mean it carries batteries to help power. And the front unit, the locomotive, although each of these units actually helps drive it. The front one is just the one where Dracofunk Kerman, me, and Bill Kerman are currently sitting, doing all the piloting duties. And you may have noticed the sun is setting. But that's okay. I've driven in the dark before. The only problem I can see is that we'll lose some of the extra charging through the photovoltaic panels, and that may be a bit of an issue. I should have looked to see. Make sure. So, yeah, I just want to get as close. I want to get all the way to Point Hotel, and that's really where we are. I really should have let the batteries charge a little bit more. We do have RTGs on here. That will recharge the batteries as we're driving, but not quite as fast as we use electricity. I am recording this in the morning. I'm actually a day late, so I'm recording this the same day it will be released, such as Wednesday, December 14th. I have my timer going. This craft does pull to the right a bit, so I do have to keep adjusting. The good news is it does seem pretty flat here. The bad news is, in order to keep my speed up, I am having to use a little more electricity. Like, I really need to let this recharge and see if I can get it above. I'd like it to get back to 3,000, so I'm just going to coast for a little bit. I really think I am losing some of my charging due to the sun going down, which is only going to be compounded when I have to turn on the headlights. But there always has to be some sort of drama. This episode is going to be the I'm running out of electricity drama. And I know there are going to be some people, EVs, am I right? And, you know, I know where you're coming from. I really do. Like, how's our infrastructure going to hold this? You can't charge from one place to the other. I mean, you know, I think EVs, electric vehicles, are going to be what we all end up going to. It's just got to happen. And I mean, environmentally and also as a energy dependence, and just for the fact that, you know, that there's a Tower Power song that came out in like the 70s because there's only so much oil, and you know that's kind of true. And while we may have enough to last us for still another 30 years, that's only 30 years, and 30 years goes by real fast. And then what do we do if we don't start switching now and start moving the infrastructure in the way? I mean, you know, it used to be 100 years ago, people were saying the same thing about gasoline cars, because you couldn't drive across the country on a gasoline car, because when you run out of fuel, what do? People were used to horses or trains. The trains had the infrastructure, they had to build up the infrastructure. Horses, you could just stop off and get them some food and water, as long as you could find that. It's going to be the same thing for electric vehicles. Right now, maybe you can't make it all the way across the country, but that's starting to change. How can our electric grid hold up to everybody charging their car? It's not going to be an overnight change. It's going to happen somewhat slowly, but we will adapt. And a trickle charge does not have the pull on the current as like everybody's AC turning on at the same time. And yeah, there are going to be a lot of instances where EVs aren't quite up to the task to do some of the stuff that conventional gasoline or diesel powered vehicles do yet, but they'll get there. As the need arises for new innovations, that they will happen. And I agree, there are some things that are not quite ready. And I'm watching my electricity as I'm talking about this, and I'm down below 1,000 units. So I'm actually officially in trouble with electricity. Oh, and I have a cat jumping up on my desk. And you can hear her, she's rubbing on my microphone. Well, I am going to have to pause for a moment and let my batteries recharge. And I don't know if I want to break the no time warping rule. I'm kind of coasting. Actually, I'm picking up a little bit of speed. I'm just going to go, and as long as I don't start rolling backwards, if I start to come to a stop, I'll put the brakes on. I'm going to I want to get to about 4,000. And I think I'll get there pretty quickly. I am still moving though. I'm really surprised. I'm just going to turn and head a little bit more to... So there's my rant on electric vehicles. No, our infrastructure, if everybody switched to electric vehicles overnight, no, our infrastructure couldn't handle it. But that's not how it's going to happen. And it's already starting to happen. More and more people every day are making the switch. More and more infrastructure to support that is coming online. And we'll continue to update the technology to make it better and make things work better. And if something truly isn't working for it, it's not like, well, let's take the airplane. People were trying to build an airplane for hundreds of years, and nobody said, the first time anybody failed, well, actually, people did say this. The first time any people failed, there were people who always said, well, see, airplanes don't work. You'll never build an airplane. And look where we are now. And I know I've seen these videos of people, especially as pickup truck EVs come online, doing the towing analysis, and they're not getting the performance they would like. They're having trouble, towing long distances, and I understand that's a problem. But as the need for long distance towing for pickup trucks increases, we'll find better solutions to make that last longer. And I know people are like, well, the batteries and the engines, and there will be solutions. I don't know what they are, but people will come up with them. I think, honestly, one of the solutions to that is, because electric vehicles are generally direct drive, I don't think direct drive EV is the solution for towing vehicles. Honestly, I think that is a flawed idea, and that for towing EVs, we need to... Oh wow, the sun just set. Or not set, but the shadow came over. Anyway, for towing EVs, we're going to need a way to change the efficiency of the motors. Like a transmission, and I don't know, or just some way to change the gearing to make the motor work a little less harder. That way it can be a little bit more efficient on the towing. And I can already tell that, even though it didn't feel like the photovoltaic panels were doing anything, that the charging has slowed. And okay, I'm gonna go once we get to 3,000, because I want to keep moving, and if I have to stop again, I have to stop again. But okay, I'm sorry. That's my rant on electric vehicles. So to conclude that, yes, traditional gasoline and diesel powered engines are currently more efficient. They're better at doing the things that we do, and the reason being is we have over 100 years of using them, and innovation and infrastructure for them. So of course that's why they are better, and something new is going to have growing pains. But if we don't start doing it now before we have to, it's going to hurt a lot less when we have to, if that makes sense. All right, what else do I need to say? Hey, I don't know if you guys saw this. So my last video came out after this, but I recorded it just before this. Actually, I recorded that video and then immediately went on to watch the live stream of the Artemis splashdown. And I was talking to Shaggy B. He was watching it too. We weren't actually we were just messaging back and forth. But yeah, Artemis splashed down in the Pacific Ocean after, I think it was 25 days in space, and this was a demonstration mission. And Shaggy B brought up asking if there were human analogs. There was the main one that everybody probably knows about, the Moonican. I think his full name was like Moonican Campos. Probably got that wrong. Hey, if I got it wrong, put a message in the comments. There were also 2 other human analogs that had sensors measuring all sorts of things, including, radiation, because they want to know how much radiation astronauts will be exposed to, G-forces, all sorts of things. And we can't forget the Snoopy doll that did not get strapped in and was just free to float about the cabin. Although I'm very sad there was not an accompanying Woodstock. Because we all know if Snoopy went to space, Woodstock would go with him. And anyway, that concluded the Artemis 1 mission. And now we're not going to get Artemis 2 until 2024, which it's a bit sad, and why so far away? And I guess the big thing is, in order to complete Artemis 4, Starship, the lunar lander version of Starship, has to launch and be there for it. And we still have not gotten an orbital test of Starship. Starship is still unproven. And they have to prove, one, that they can that it works and can actually get to orbit. They have to do an orbital proving launch, which they have yet to do. They're getting so close. And Elon says we can, I said the E word, I'm sorry, but says that it's still going to happen by the end of 2023, and I don't know. I don't think it'll happen by the end of 23, but I would happily be proven wrong. They still haven't done the 33-engine static fire, and they have to do a wet dress rehearsal, and I don't know that Booster 7's been moved back to the launch pad. Moved back to the launch pad. They'll have to stack Ship 24 on top of it. And this is just to do the wet dress rehearsal. Once they've done that, then they can apply for a launch license. Well, maybe they can apply for the launch license before, but they can't actually launch until that's done. And that's a lot to do in, just over 2 weeks? And if they do that, then they have to have, which I don't know if they've even started construction on it. They probably have, but they need the lunar lander version of Starship plus the tanker version of Starship. And they need to prove that the lander can be launched, be fully refueled, and fly and land on the moon. Their goal for that is to have that done before 2024. And if Artemis 4 is to be on time, that all has to happen, and they have to prove that they can reliably launch Starship into orbit, refuel the lander, and get the lander to the moon and land on, and have the lander actually land on the moon. I don't know that they have to do a moon landing proving mission, but I believe that that is the goal that SpaceX has set, to actually do a landing and back to orbit mission with Starship. So I did remember to set a timer. And in 20 minutes we will check our progress. Because I don't like to look at the map until at least 45 minutes in, and we are getting down to 1,000 units of electricity and going up a big hill, which big hills are the enemy of battery conservation. And I'm really trying to keep 1,000 units in. I know I just dipped below. I wasn't watching close enough. I'm hoping I can get over the top of this hill and then coast down, but I do see another hill off in the distance, and we are currently actually going up, not down. We're back above 1,000 units, but still traveling up and slowing down. Oh man, if I would have waited there and charged. Oh well, what are you gonna do? All I can do is just keep heading north towards Point Hotel. And in the end, I'll get there when I get there, and I have as much electricity as I have, and it'll charge as fast as it'll charge. And I'll just be here driving to the North Pole with you guys. I also want to say thanks to all the new subscribers. As of the recording of this, we are at 87. Which, this was the 60 subscriber special, so since then we have gotten 27 more subscribers. And I did set a 100 subscriber challenge that if by the end of 2023 we get up to 100 subscribers, I will drive this Rover with a different crew. I want to add a different crew. If we get to 100 subscribers by the end of 2023, during the second season of the reusable space program, I will drive this to the South Pole. And I'll probably do that mission a little bit differently. I will still have waypoints. I don't know that I can... The way I got all the bases here was I have a special aircraft that was designed to carry the bases and drop them out of the back on parachutes. Excuse me. Hey, put a comment with a timestamp of that burp. Anyway, I had an aircraft that was designed to drop the bases, and each of the bases has parachutes out the back. For the South Pole version, though, that aircraft would have enough fuel to basically drop one base before having to come back. And if you watched part 2 of dropping bases from an aircraft, you notice that I almost didn't make it home. Like, the fuel, I was running on fumes. Like, the Point Hotel I was already running on fumes there, and the only reason I made it back was that the airplane is a lot lighter, out of fuel, and no bases, and I'm able to actually get decent performance when it's fully fueled and fully loaded. It flies terrible, and I can't get up high enough to get into the thinner parts of the atmosphere where I can really pick up speed. I mean, I cut out parts of that. I think the second part of that mission was almost 2 hours long of flying. So I'll have to come up with something different, maybe a mix of aircraft, bases, because I can easily build some aircraft to fly the route, and I'll have to do that anyway. So I did kind of fly. Well, I used the base dropping aircraft to scout the route. And I just want to clarify, I'm not the first person to drive a Rover to the North Pole. I have seen others do it. In fact, I think there's somebody who even built a Rover train similar to mine that tried to do it. Although his didn't seem to work as well and would start flapping and basically tear itself apart if he went too fast, which I thought would be a problem. So I tested it, and it wasn't a problem. So I'm running out of electricity again. I'm down to 400 units. I'm just coasting and recharging because I got a big hill coming up. And the worst thing that could happen is be going up a steep hill, lose your voice when you're talking commentary, and anyway, running out of electricity going up a steep hill where you don't have enough to get up. Oh, I've switched the target, which means I am getting closer. Let me fix that. But anyway, running out of electricity going up a hill, and you have to stop to keep from going backwards. But when you eventually recharge, it's still not enough to get you all the way up the hill. think I have enough to get me going fast enough to coast the rest of the way up this hill. So I don't want that to happen, and I'm getting close to a situation where that might become a reality. I'm hoping I can coast all the way back up this hill, and I'm starting to think that I'm not, which I may have just put myself in the exact scenario that I was just talking about. And my hope is that once I get over this ridge, I can coast for a good amount of time. And so it's not really that steep here. I'm slowing down, but not drastically so. Okay, let's just push on. I'm actually heading downhill just a little bit. So I know I like to keep these right around an hour. If we are really close to Point Hotel, I might just push on. Depends on how close we are. And how frustratingly low on electricity we are. Sorry about the silence there. There was a moment of a matter I had to deal with. Anyway, back to driving to the North Pole. So this is, I've been doing all these straight shot, one-time recording. There's been no outtakes, no re-records, no redos, no loading from save files. It's no time warp, except I think one time maybe I used time warp between episodes to recharge the batteries. But that was just being stationary. Which I could have just left the game running. But either way, yeah, this has all been straight shot, first take. I'm recording live. And that's just the way it is. And clearly the drama for this episode is running out of electricity. The sun now is completely over the horizon. and darkness is upon us. And this is that hill that's going to run me out of electricity and I'm going to get stuck on. Oh. Let's see if I can make it over. Keep above 100 units. And there's another ridge. I feel like I don't want to, but I feel like I'm going to have to stop and let my batteries charge up on the RTGs for just a little bit. But I will continue to coast for now. Oh, unfortunately, slow progress is better than no progress. But it is not in line with my goal. All right. Coast for a little while. This is a very nice flat section, which will hopefully let me get my batteries charged up, and I can just let this drive on its own, completely hands off, except for that annoying pulling to the right. Let's just overcorrect for a little while, and I'll let it go. And we're going downhill. We're picking up speed there for a second. And here in a couple minutes, we'll go ahead and switch out to map view to see how we're doing. So here, Highway 47, this is not just my channel. There are other people. We have the main people are Shaggy B, Vomit, and Scrodrick, not in any particular order. We all have uploaded individual content and even content together. Actually, mostly content together in many different combinations. We started this channel out as me and Shaggy B watching the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, and then we started doing some one-offs. Scrodrick joined us very early on. Actually, I think Scrodrick was on the second or third episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. And it was probably during the pandemic. Vomit, who had been listening to us, suggested we should record during the pandemic all the Godzilla movies. and we recorded the first one without him, and I believe he joined us on the second movie, Gigantus, and since then has been recording with us fairly often. We did, in fact, watch all of the Godzilla movies. So the way that works is you watch the movie in your favorite form, hopefully commercialist form. We explain which version we're using. For the Godzilla movies, mostly we used the DVDs. We also watched the Netflix series, and I think 3 of the Netflix movies. But it was a combination of DVDs, Blu-rays, Netflix. Probably forgetting something, and Vomit, if you're listening, you're going to say, you forgot this. And that is true. I did forget that because I don't remember. That's what forgetting is. It's not remembering. But we made it through all the Godzilla movies, and then that became our 4-drink minimum series, and we have since expanded that. We have 4-drink minimum 80s movies, which pop up from time to time. There's no set schedule. There's no set movies. It's just whatever we end up doing whenever we end up doing them. But our current big project is the 4-drink minimum Marvel movies, where we watch all the Marvel movies, starting with the very first one. And I'm not talking the MCU. That's part of them, but that was not the first movie based on a Marvel title. And we're really focusing on the cinematic release Marvel movies. We do occasionally, if our main crew cannot make it, we will do what's called a detour, where we go back and watch some of the made-for-TV movies, but those aren't on a specific schedule like the theatrical release. Anyway, the first theatrical release movie based on a Marvel character was Howard the Duck. And that's how we started off that series. And this week we are all the way up to The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So we've been through all the theatrical release and some of the made-for-TV, and also the not really released, even the obscure ones, like the not really released, was it the Fantastic Four? The R.J. Corman Fantastic Four? That was basically just recorded so the studio kept the rights to make a Fantastic Four movie. And we are halfway, so I think that puts us halfway through phase 2 of the MCU. Because I think there are 6 movies in phase 2, not counting the one-shots, which we are watching the one-shots as well. So we've watched 3 movies of phase 2, and we have 3 to go. Plus an X-Men movie, which is not part of the MCU. Oh, we are almost 5 minutes past where I'm checking the map, and I am not nearly as close as I'd like to be. It looks better like that. Well, let me think about this. So, I have about 10 minutes left. I'm below 1,000 units of electricity. Somebody's calling me that is potential spam. It's dark. Less than 10 minutes left. Less than 1,000 units of electricity. And I'm this far away. Because there's Point Hotel. There is the Rover. We started about here. Do I keep going? Knowing I'm really wrestling with this decision, because at this point, if I stop and let my batteries fully recharge, I will make it to Point Golf probably in a lot less time, and I do want to stop at Point Golf before doing the last jaunt to the North Pole. I don't want it to be just a passing visit like Point Hotel. Just a passing visit like Point Golf was. And I will be picking up passengers at Point Hotel. So, do I keep going and extend this episode beyond an hour? The other thing is, I am also coming up with the point that if I do keep going, this episode might not release on time. Because once I finish recording, there are a little bit of editing, just a little bit of editing I have to do. And then it's editing, render the episode. I'll have to compress it because it'll be too big if I don't, and then upload it. Which I already am basically on the verge of not having enough time, even if I don't continue on. And if I do continue on, everything it'll be a longer video, which means it will take longer to render, longer to compress, longer to upload. And I'm basically out of electricity. Like, I'm at 300 units right now, so I'm going to have to stop. And I'm so close. No matter what I do, I don't have a good solution. Every time I go up a hill, I think, am I going to run? Is this going to be the hill I run out of electricity and have to basically get stuck there? Okay. Okay. I thought about it, and I guess here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop because it's night. I'm out of electricity. I'm out of time. I'm going to stop up here whenever I run out of... Actually, I'm going to stop right here as I run out of time, and we will do a short jaunt in the next episode. I actually have to get the passengers I'm picking up at Point Hotel actually aren't there yet. So I'm going to have to get them there. I'll probably just fly them out there. And that can be part of the video. And next week, so a week from now, because I'm pretty positive I can make it to Point Golf in the next episode. I mean, I'm just so close now. That next Wednesday, guys, I'm going to the North Pole. This rover will be heading on the ice sheet towards the North Pole. And that episode will basically be, once I'm on the ice sheet, I'm not stopping. It's going to be however long it is. although I foresee being able to go much faster, and I want to be fully charged when I get onto the ice sheet. Which, getting onto the ice sheet is going to be a little bit tricky, but I have a plan. I don't know if my plan's going to work, because I've never actually tested. I just kind of looked around and said, this is where I'm going. But we are going to stop there, deploy the Highway 47 broadcast satellite dishes, and we will see you next time when I arrive at Point Gulf and pick up the final passengers of the North Pole Rover expedition, our 60 subscriber special, before we make our last push to the North Pole base. I'm Dracofunk. Have a good evening.